So we had the DNI report come out. We had also over the weekend on Friday evening, Lindsey Graham declassified, I think it was 11 transcripts from the Senate Judiciary's hearings on FISA abuse. Did you see?
Okay. No.
I read some of them, but not all. What's the point? I just don't see how Durham's going to convict anybody in a Biden administration. It's like, I'm going to read through these and piece them together. But the one that really, really got me, Frank, this weekend was the General Flynn 302s that were released by FOIA.
And what was in there?
I mean, it's crazy. My dog. So what's interesting about it is 132 pages or so of 302s from the special counsel and the ones right before the special counsel. And they literally gaslight him. And you can see it in the language that they use. That, like, they try to gaslight him into thinking that he talked about sanctions, and he pushes back, but they did it like this, and it's really crazy. Reading through the 302s, you can understand the entire story. They seeded this whole sanctions thing out there. They had press reporting up the wazoo about it in this transition that was already so unorganized. And then the people inside of the transition team believed the legacy media reporting, because even Devin Nunes said in the beginning he didn't believe that these people would report this stuff if there wasn't some shred of truth to it. Like, he didn't think that they could lie so badly. Like, he thought there might have been something to this, that, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And you can tell, like, using the existing administration, the Yateses, the Comeys, etc. of the world, and the media, they convinced people inside of the incoming Trump administration that General Flynn talked about sanctions. So many people came to him saying, well, did you talk about the sanctions? That he started to question himself and say, well, shit, maybe I did talk about the sanctions. Yeah, because they, amongst themselves within the transition, talked about the sanctions frequently, because the Obama administration levied these sanctions on Russia as they were walking out the door to leave for the incoming administration to pick up the mess. So I went back again to the transcripts of his conversations with Kislyak. Do you know the word sanctions is mentioned 3 times in the entire set of transcripts of these calls? 2 times in one sentence when Kislyak corrects the way he said the word, and 1 other time by Kislyak. Do you know who never addresses the sanctions with Kislyak 1 time?
Flynn.
General Flynn. He talks about the expulsion of diplomats, but the way that these FBI agents interviewed General Flynn, they literally gaslit him into believing that, you know, you tell someone, you have everybody telling you said something, but you're sure you didn't. And then finally you're like, well, I guess I could have been wrong. I mean, I don't remember saying that. You know, I was on vacation. I had 100 different phone calls. Okay. Do you see what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Especially in the fog of a vacation and the craziness of a transition after you just went through that campaign that you went through. And now they're bludgeoning you over the head over the minutia of a call you probably didn't put too much stock or weight into weeks and weeks after the call happened. I mean, you pressure me on anything that I spoke to anybody about on the phone. I don't know, a month ago. I don't know. God knows what I'll be made to misremember.
Well, one of the portions I pulled out, I wrote an article, it's about to go up, and one of the portions that I pulled out is this. This is in the 302. When the Washington Post asked Flynn about sanctions, he said, quote, no. Anton said to Flynn that if he talked about sanctions, this might be a good time to get it out there. This advice only started another fire and resurrected the issue, and it became a bigger problem. Then, sanctions were definitely one of the topics they discussed in that conversation. Flynn had multiple calls with, this is the 302. This is the agents writing the 302. Flynn had multiple calls with Russian Ambassador Sergei Kislyak on 12/29/2016 as they tried to connect. Sanctions was definitely one of the topics they discussed in that conversation. But they didn't speak about sanctions. Like, literally, they didn't. Then in the next portion I pulled out, you see they're writing the 302 to reaffirm sanctions, but they're so overly ridiculous about it that it's obvious. After the call with Kislyak, Flynn spoke with McFarland for 26 minutes. Flynn told her about his conversation with Kislyak, including sanctions. Why would you add that on the end? Including sanctions. Why would you add that?
Cherries on top. I don't know. I just don't know.
It's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. And even in his declaration, which I put here, he says, I tried to, quote, accept responsibility by admitting to offenses I understood the government I love and trust said I committed. In truth, I never lied. He literally was gaslit into, and you know what? It's all Vice President Pence. It's all Pence. It was always Pence. It was Pence who had a spy as his chief of staff. We talked about that. Anybody who has a spy for the FBI as their chief of staff is either an abject moron or knows it.
Yeah, and he was the reason why Flynn was fired. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember that. Well, I had a buddy of mine who was a long time, we went to high school together, and he was working on in the DOD, and he was actually or invited to be a part of the transition team. And when he got in touch with me, when this started happening, I said, well, what the hell's happening right now? He said, it doesn't really even matter about the details of what phone calls were made to who and what was said. The problem is that he misled the vice president of the United States, and that can't happen.
But he did.
I know, but that's what was told to us.
Yeah.
And at least to a lesser degree, that's what was told, or I guess a greater degree, that was told to the president.